Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of positive confusion, listening to something, wondering what it is you heard, but wanting to check out some more of it. Today we're going to be looking at a band called Elizabeth Color Wheel. The track we're going to be exploring is 34th. I had to look at the timestamps because it is a live showing. It is the first track of the show, which is interesting. It's only 4.5 minutes long, so let's dive into this and see what Elizabeth Color Wheel is bringing to the table today. It's a lot of noise. So our right guitar is just chord progressions, our left guitar is tremolo picked melodies. Was not expecting the hi-hat to come back. Is trying to figure out what this is. I know we have another minute until the next track starts. But is this like a transition? Is it part of the song? And then that starts the next track, Life of a Flower. I think I'm going to disregard that last minute, minute and a half as a live transition between tracks. Primarily because I think it's interesting in contrast to what we came from, but it has very little to do with that, and it in fact seems to have more to do with where we were going. So I'm going to attribute it as an intro to the next track rather than the outro of the first track, which was called, what was it again? As a number, 34th. What a strange title. All right, so I'm seeing a pattern here, right? We're gonna look at the Garden and Admiral Angry, and now Elizabeth Color Wheel. A lot of people have suggested songs that are wild, eclectic, and loud for Positive Confusion Week. I'm really I'm really hoping that tomorrow and Friday we have a little bit more variety out of this. I'm not really expecting much. It is, the community revolves around math, and I obviously cannot speak today. Revolves around metal and rock. So it makes sense that Positive Confusion Week was going to bring out a lot of more extreme metals and rocks. Um, Extreme rocks. I don't know why that makes me laugh. This analysis is not off to a great start. Um, so yeah, it makes sense given the community, but I was kind of hoping for a little bit more variety out of it. I mean, Positive Confusion can be a lot of stuff, and all three of these tracks have been very similar at times. Um, so just something I wanted to point out. I started to see a pattern here 3 days in, and very similar ideas. So what's this band doing though? They're being noisy. I can I say that, like, they're being noisy theoretically speaking? Can I have an addendum to that? Um, we're going to use noise in a very literal sense here, right? Not the dismissive, it's just noise kind of stuff. They're making a lot of sounds without much attention paid towards cohesion. Well, it is cohesive on one level, but without much attention paid towards consonant tones or flow, anything that would make it more traditionally palatable, right? So they're using a lot of aggressive sounds in a way. Of course, it is still cohesive, and I wanted to emphasize that because I did misspeak there. Everything here is designed to create a very specific vibe, especially in the noisier sections. We have very harsh guitar tones and bass tones. We have very harsh vocals. We have very loud and frequently played drums. And that frequently played aspect goes towards the guitars too. There is one guitarist, I think I said it was the left hand guitar, frequently utilized tremolo picking to add a lot of texture to the song as a whole. So, frequency of attacks, gnarliness of textures and timbres, this is what predicates half of this track, is just being noisy, screaming, playing fast, not really caring about consonants, which I think is a big part. I'm not going to say that this is a dissonant song, but there is plenty of dissonance in it. But that's only half of the track. The other half is weighty in a different way. It's quiet in an alarming type of manner. It's not peaceful. It's not serene. The moments in between the noise is more alarming. Especially after the first transition, maybe the second transition back to the heavy noise, you begin to think when we get to the quiet part, when does the noise come back? And I think that's a really interesting question to have while listening to a song like this, because it turns the moments of calm into tension. There isn't tension in the music. It's not like we have dissonance in there. We don't have ominous chords being played. But the sheer fact of when am I going to get screamed at again is enough to invoke a type of tension in the listener. Or exhilaration, I suppose, if you're looking forward to those moments. I can't wait to get back to it. They've told me they're going to get back here. We get back to the loud part quick. So, how many bars till we get back to it? Like, if you're looking forward to it, that's one thing. I suppose my read here is based off of my reaction and experience with the track, which was not necessarily a sort of dread, but an anticipation, a negative anticipation. This is quiet. I can catch my breath, but for how long? Until we get back to the yelling. And I find that interesting. I can't think of another track. I mean, we've listened to thousands of songs on this channel just in proper reactions. Probably another few hundred if we take in the live stream stuff. Cause that's 40 songs, give or take, a month there. There's so much music that I don't remember. I probably have listened to something similar to this, but I think this is the first time I've brought this up. This is the first time my experience is like this. There is this sickly anticipation, this fear, knowing that these quiet moments don't last. I wonder if that's their intention. I'm going to wager not. They seem very proficient at their loud sections. I'm going to assume that that is their general sound, right? Maybe they do often bounce back and forth between, but melody and harmony are not what is showcased in this track, and I am extrapolating that to their skill set. But also, the fans here seem to be pretty excited about the heavier stuff. So I'm going to wager that I'm outside of their core audience with this, and that most people aren't listening to this with that rigid anticipation. And so I doubt that that's their intent, but it's certainly my experience with it. Now, the other interesting part is that there is a type of tension in the quiet sections, and it isn't indicated by a purely subjective experience with it. It is her vocal work. When her vocals aren't there, we sort of just have guitar and maybe a little cymbal work, a little bit of tom, excluding the build-up points. The build-up points are quiet and there's stuff going on, but of course it's building up to a big moment. But they're very minimal, very, very simple and quiet. But her vocals, she plays around so much with microtonality, I think. A less generous read might be that she just doesn't have the tonality practice to stay in tune. Not that there really is much of a tune. The guitars are definitely not laying down a key signature here for me. There's just a lot of sound, so you can't really be out of tune with a key that isn't really present. But yeah, she uses microtonality in a lot of ways that introduce an off-kiltering in her clean vocal work, especially with the fanciful ways she dances around notes. She doesn't ever do anything quick. Everything is these long, suspended tones, but she doesn't stay on a single note either. It's all about just kind of like being really loosey goosey with it, just whoo, and pulling like all these like microtones out of it, all these notes between the notes. Lots of these really long slurs, slides, whatever however you want to envision that. I use the word slurs because that's what aerophones typically do. But on a guitar you would slide and you get all the sounds and between the two notes you're going on. Um, and the notes that she ends up starting on and ending on, paired with the microtonality of everything in between, has this eerie edge to it, especially against the quiet. I don't know, it was a really unsettling track for me in a lot of ways. And honestly, not because of the heavy parts. Those were the parts I felt safest in. I knew what was going on. I understood it. It wasn't my cup of tea, but there was no danger around the corner. I was in the danger and I could deal with it. That's a weird metaphor. But the quiet parts were just wow. It's so filled with tension for me. And that's kind of my whole read on this. I don't know if this sits in positive confusion for me. Um I am kind of taken aback by this in some ways, but less so than I think previous tracks in this week, and I think that's just circumstance. I think if we had started the week with this, I would be very confused. But again, like I had stated at the beginning of this is sort of the vibe we've been in all week. So I'm just in that mindset for it. Um, and I don't think that's necessarily fair. I mean, like even yesterday, I think I completely forgot to talk about the theme at all with Admiral Angry just because I don't think I was confused by it in the slightest. Definitely raw and angry though, and this is raw and angry. And like I said, I think that about wraps it up. I mean, the only other thing I think is worth mentioning is dynamics, right? I think the first part's obvious. There's loud and noisy, there's quiet and empty, but there's also so many moments in between, especially once we get to the end and we build up and we come back down. We build up and we come back down. They play around so much with filling space, which is also why I feel like the transitional aspect isn't tied to this song at all, because this song is about dynamics, it's about soundscapes, it's about sound spheres, and that transitional element was atmosphere. Very different approach to the composition. Um, but the dynamic quality here, I think, was one of the big takeaways. And you could feel it, or at least see it, in the audience as well. They felt, when we started to rise up, they start like getting more antsy. The dude right at the front was like banging his hand on the stage floor, in rhythm with the build up, and like his hand movements would get bigger, and then he, calm back down. Um, just a lot of ways that the dynamics are used to control the ebb and flow of the aggression and the chiller aspects. All right, I'm gonna hit the lyrics real quick, and we'll see what's going on. All right, so a few really interesting things. First of all, I don't know all of their tracks, but in the "You Might Also Like These Songs," 23 is suggested, which is interesting because this is called 34th, which is even stranger because one is just a number and one is a placement word. Um, but they're both numbers. I'm really curious, and they both seem to be on the same album. Yes, they are. Um, okay. Also, it just kind of dawned on me when I was reading these words. I was like, I didn't hear any of this. And I started to think back, and I was like, all I remember is screaming. Not syllables, just raw sound. So I guess there's words here. And there's not a lot. I'm going to read all 8 lines here, because I don't quite have a strong read on it. Maybe reading it out loud is going to help. Threatening in the past, current, future. Don't you want to be a humanoid? Take off your armor, let the kindness be your guide. I will not surrender. I will stand by to be one of the kind I still have and flush it out, to flush it out of this ash. You get what you want, you get what you get. I I don't know. There's 2, maybe 3 lines that I get here. Don't you want to be a humanoid? Take off your armor, let the kindness be your guide. I think that makes a lot of sense. It speaks to humanity's ability to have empathy towards others, right? And that's not exclusive to humanity, but it is one of our strong points, right? Kindness is something that we are very good at, even if we aren't reminded that we're good at it all the time. Um, and it says, I will not surrender. I will stand by to be one of the kind I still have. Almost as if to say that I will continue to be kind regardless of what's around me. I will not surrender and allow the darkness to take over and be bitter, like some people are. That's kind of what I get. But that's 3 lines in the middle and ignores the first line, threatening in the past, current, future. Unless the threat is to remove our humanity. The loss of our humanity is something that has threatened our ancestors, it threatens us, and it threatens those that will come after us. We need to keep the kindness, right? Maybe. Maybe. I feel like I'm stretching that first line a bit. But then you get what you want, you get what you get. Those two I don't know. But then I think about how any of this relates to the song. The lyrics, I'm going to assume, are primarily in the heavy sections, because in the softer sections, all I got was vocalizations, right? I could actually hear what she was saying, and it was just wavy oohs and ahs stuff. So the message of be kind is delivered in screaming in my ear, which is not a bad thing in and of itself. I think it's just interesting to point out that our vocalist has chosen to deliver this message of kindness in the most aggressive aspect of the song. She does sing with a clean vocal in some parts of the track and chooses not to use those. It's a very explicit, intentional choice there, which makes sense if this is a message that you feel not enough people hear. So you scream it at the top of your lungs to make sure everyone can hear your message. That I can get behind. Coincidentally, by screaming it, also no one can understand it, but that's just a side effect of harsh vocals, I think. But then how do the peaks and valleys fit in here? What's the purpose of the loud versus the small? Why did I feel so much tension in the calming spaces? There's so much about my experience with the music and my read of it that don't line up with this at all, and it really makes me curious because it's not like like a pop track or a radio rock song where you just kind of write the music and then you put some lyrics on it, and that's just how it goes, right? You make the music that you can sell, that you can market, and you put some lyrics on top of it, and the themes don't have to go together because they just typically don't in that manner. But this is not typical music. This music is very specific. It almost seems designed with an intention in mind, and I'm not sure what that intention is. Maybe it's just the music they like to write. That's always a possibility, but it feels like a very odd choice of music to put with these lyrics. This song definitely has me in the confused realm now. Let me know what you thought of this track. Anything that stood out? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said? Correct me on whatever. I I have a lot of questions. Maybe some of y'all can help fill me in on that. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here. It has links for everything related to the channel. Find my music, a link to the Discord, ways to support the channel, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. We have a special section coming up next. Otherwise, check you guys tomorrow. We're going to continue on with our positive confusion week and look at another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.